The city of Birmingham welcomes Davenport's Chequer Bitter Classic as a prelude to the International Motor Show at the National Exhibition Centre. World champions in abundance, led by the 5 times world champion Juan Manuel Fangio, all the way from his home 3,500 miles away in Argentina, specially to be with us here in Birmingham. Fangio, a long-time supporter of street racing, is happy to be back in England. We asked him if he was looking forward to the event.
Yes, it's very interesting to be here. A lot of public, a lot of cars. A beautiful day.
A beautiful day indeed. The weather has been laid on specially, I know, but which is your favourite car of all the cars you've driven? Is it this one?
Sí, realmente es un día buenísimo. ¿Y cuál es de todos los coches que corriste tu mejor, el que te gustó más? ¿Es este o no?
Sí, este no se rompía nunca, ¿no?
He said, yes, this one never broke.
Es un gusto estar acá. Gracias.
It's a pleasure to be here.
One of the great characters of British motorsport, now a journalist in his island.
Well, this is the third on the streets affair that I've been to, and Martin's a very determined fellow. I know he's got the Birmingham Council people behind him, and I just wish him success when he goes to Parliament.
In his island was the first driver to win a Grand Prix for the Works Lotus team. At that time, he was driving also in sports cars for Aston Martin. The company was then owned by industrialist Sir David Brown, the DBR1 of the type that won the World Sports Car Championship, the DB3, an earlier predecessor, the DBR4 Formula One car, VMF 63, one of the 1950 team cars. And the drivers are here as well to welcome Sir David on this, the 25th anniversary of their win at Le Mans. Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby shared the winning DBR1 in 1959. Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby drove for the Works Formula One team in the same year. They drive the cars again here in Birmingham. But how does Sir David feel about a race round the streets?
Oh, I think it would be a marvellous idea. I think it would be very good for industry and bring business to the Midlands, and I'm absolutely 100% for it.
Driving now for the Skull Bandit Porsche team, British driver from Leamington, David Hobbs, is also the American IMSA champion. What are his views?
I think it's going to be a pretty interesting experience. There seems to be an awful lot of people milling around, so it's obviously got the population's interest, and there's a fantastic collection of cars here. I mean, absolutely marvellous machinery, and I think it should be pretty good fun. What we want now is a real race.
Yeah, now you've had some experience with street racing. You'd like to see it come to Britain?
Well, I did the Detroit Grand Prix in America this year. They ran a Trans Am race, and we drove our Camaros and Corvettes in the streets of Detroit, and it was good fun. It's a tight little circuit, and the Grand Prix drivers didn't like it much because it's pretty bumpy. But I thought it was good fun, actually, driving around the streets, yeah.
The Grand Prix drivers don't like it when it gets difficult, though, do they?
Nah, they don't like anything. As long as they're moaning about something, that's the only time they're ever happy, really.
Yeah, so we won't have them here moaning. We'll keep it to chaps like you.
Well, that's right. I mean, they don't have to have a Grand Prix in the streets here. They could have a sports car race or a saloon car race, and I think the population generally would like it. And obviously, it would be expensive to do it right. You know, the initial expense would be relatively heavy, but on the other hand, it should drag in a lot of people into the city, so one way or another, the city should make money out of it.
A trip then into tomorrow with the Davenport's Chequer Bitter Classic. Produced and directed by International Festival Services UK Limited on behalf of the city of Birmingham, the marching bands are but a prelude to the day's events. Events which have received support from international companies all over the country. Davenport's Chequer Bitter Classic has been supported by the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, by the English Tourist Board, Austin Rover, Jaguar, General Motors, Goodyear, Andrews Heat for Hire, Bristol Street Motors, Shell, the Forward Trust Group, and of course Birmingham itself, together with the city's police, who have contributed so much to the smooth running of the day. Kinney Gibson, in the rocket pack that was designed for moon journeys, opens the Chequer Bitter Classic just as they opened the Olympic Games, and is greeted by Birmingham's Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Bill Soughton. Baron Tullio de Graffenried, the ex-Swiss champion at the wheel of the 159 Alfa Romeo Alfetta, making its first appearance in England since 1951, is on the grid at the start of the first demonstration. President of the Club International des Anciens Pilotes de Grand Prix, Baron de Graffenried is making his first visit to Birmingham with the 159 Alfa Romeo. Behind him a street full of Bugattis commemorating William Grover Williams' win at Monaco in 1929. We asked Baron de Graffenried how he feels about motor racing on the streets of Birmingham.
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea, and my friend Martin Horn has also a very good idea. Of course, I met him in Dubai in one of his organizations. It's the first time I come here. But what I found, which is wonderful, the enthusiasm of this organization.
The original design of the 159 Alfa Romeo goes back to 1938. The car was only beaten on few occasions, once by Mercedes-Benz at Tripoli in 1939 and by the Ferraris in their last year in Grand Prix racing for the 159 in 1951. De Graffenried drove for the team in his own Swiss Grand Prix at Bern. The twin-stage supercharged straight 8-cylinder engine of 1500cc gave 450 brake horsepower in its final form and was one of the most powerful racing cars seen post-war until the advent of the current Formula One regulations. Indeed, only the ill-fated 16-cylinder BRM gave more horsepower at approximately 550 in its most developed form. The Grand Prix Bugattis, presented by members of the Bugatti Owners Club, commemorate that famous French marque which did so much for Grand Prix racing between the wars. Faud and Julien Mougeb with the beautiful Type 35s, number 3 being a fine example there of the marque. William Grover Williams, whose 1929 Monaco win this run commemorates, lost his life in the Second World War. And now that legend of motor racing, Stirling Moss, a long-time supporter of motor racing in Birmingham.
Well, I want to see all the action. Yes, it's been a great day. I must say I'm very impressed the way the crowd have behaved and the amount that have turned out. Of course, we were lucky with the weather, but I think really they have been treated to quite a day, quite a spectacle, really.
And do you feel now we're getting near to where we want to go?
Well, I think you're getting near to having a race. I don't know even that the Grand Prix is a good thing yet. I think that, I'm speaking personally, of course, from my point of view, if you have a sports car or touring car race, it'll be great because then I can have a go in it. But I do think that Grand Prix is going to take, obviously, quite a lot of thought because there are very special demands and requirements by Formula One cars. But I don't think one wants to be deterred by that because before you're allowed a Formula One race, you have to show that you can do it with another race anyway. And I think that a really good international race could be held here, and I hope to goodness it will be.
Andy Rouse, the British saloon car champion in the Industrial Control Services Rover Vitesse, follows Stirling Moss and Innes Ireland in the new Austin Montego estate, and in turn is followed by the Metros from the Worldwide Metro Challenge. The 1976 world champion, James Hunt, in a 1955 D-Type Jaguar. Owned by the expatriate Englishman John Coombs, who sponsored Roy Salvadori and Graham Hill during the course of their careers, Hunt drives this car, which normally has pride of place in Jaguar's own showroom, and leads off a parade of Jaguar cars. Their OKV2 is one of the works 1954 cars, the race for which the D-Type was designed. The Listers, the HWM Jaguars, the E-Types, the C-Types, and of course the XK120, from which they were all derived, on the streets of Birmingham in a year which has seen Jaguar go private, go back to Le Mans, and win the European Touring Car Drivers' Championship. The D-Type ran at Le Mans in 54, 5, 6 and 7, and won on 3 occasions, second on the first. These cars, absolutely superb, have not dated with age. This is the production D with the short nose and without the tail fin. On the Mulsanne straight at Le Mans, they were capable of over 180 miles per hour. James Hunt, driving the newly restored John Coombs example, which belonged at one time to Equipe Nationale Belge and finished 4th at Le Mans. OKV2 is one of the original 1954 works cars. That's followed by a production D, a Lister, a lightweight E, and the ex-Peter Walker JWK 177 green XK120 Jaguar, one of the first built for private hands. OKV2 again, followed by this galaxy of D-Types. Many of these cars competed in the commemorative Mille race in Italy earlier this year. Hunt waves his hands as he crosses the line, and out comes 3 times world champion Jack Brabham, the only man to win the World Championship in a car bearing his own name. I asked after the welfare of a sore foot.
Well, it's not too bad today. Actually, it's not going to stop me from driving, I can assure you.
Would it stop you from driving if we actually do have a race here in Birmingham? I mean, how do you feel about this?
No, I'm hoping it won't anyway. I'm really getting back on top of it, and I should be okay.
You're looking forward, obviously, to today, but do you think that racing on the streets is a good thing to happen in Britain? It happens elsewhere. Do you think we should have it here?
Well, it's the fashion these days, isn't it? They have it all over the world. In fact, Monaco's been having it for quite a long time. Why not Birmingham?
Why not indeed? Sir Jack Brabham, who retired in 1970, leads round the British Hill Climb and Sprint Association's display of hill climb and sprint cars. The 1984 British Hill Climb champion, Martin Bolsover, in the sports car on the left of your screen. British hill climbing almost started a few miles from Birmingham at Shelsley Walsh, the most famous hill in the world, and Martin Bolsover, who comes from Chadsley Corbett, in the Guyson Pilbeam. Pilbeam cars have dominated the Hill Climb Championship now for several years. Mike Pilbeam, of course, was once the designer for BRM. There's the little Anson, an interloper among all these Pilbeams, and Sir Jack coming round once again in the Brabham. Hill climbing is an immensely popular sport with spectators and competitors alike. In car number 6, Jim Thompson, a competitor himself, managing director of Guyson, whose son won the championship in 1981. As the hill climb cars pull off the road, an enormous crowd now of over 200,000 people are enjoying a beautiful day in the sunshine. On the road below, forming up now, the Aston Martin Victory Parade. Led by the Le Mans winners of 1959, Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby. Salvadori now lives in Monaco. Shelby flew in by Concorde to be with us today. We talked to the ex-Grand Prix driver who looks like a film star.
Roy, this is what, the third time you've been to Birmingham for this event?
Third time now.
And how do you view the idea of motor racing in the streets in Britain as opposed to on the circuits?
Well, I think it's a jolly good idea. I think it's much more interesting for the spectators. You've got some background. I think it's more difficult for a driver to drive on a road circuit. I think it's a good idea. I thoroughly enjoyed my Monaco racing.
From the 1920s, when Aston Martin started, right up to the present day, they've always been involved in motorsport. From the Grand Prix car to the Nimrod Aston Martin of the present and the Lola Aston Martin of the 60s. Their competition pedigree is faultless. Their road cars, superb. Perhaps the most beautiful of the front-engine Formula One cars, the DBR4s, came a year or two too late to be successful. They tried to race them in the days of the rear-engine cars. But nevertheless, Salvadori and Shelby show off the delightful lines of the 2.5-litre straight-six Formula One Aston Martin. The Lola Aston Martin and the Nimrod again. Another Nimrod, followed by the DBR1 and a pre-war car there with a DB3S that used to belong to Peter Collins. A pre-war Ulster and a rare Zagato. And once again, the Nimrod Aston Martins and the Lola lead through. As Salvadori and Shelby take the Aston Parade past the checkered flag, we look forward once again to a sight that we rarely see. That of Juan Manuel Fangio, 5 times world champion, at the wheel of a Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR. Garlanded as before, he's joined by Stirling Moss in the 250F Maserati on the grid and prepares to set off to lead round the historic Grand Prix Championship assisted by the Vintage Sports Car Club. Away goes Fangio in the 300 SLR Mercedes-Benz. Winner of the World Championship in 1951, 54, 5, 6 and 7. Fangio has no equal in the history of Grand Prix motor racing. The late Peter Collins gave his car to him in 1956 to enable him to win his 4th championship, saying that there was no point in winning when Fangio was the master. Only Britain's Stirling Moss, who never won the championship, could match him. He came so near to winning it himself in 1958 with a Van Wall, here driven by his teammate Tony Brooks. De Graffenried out again in the 158 Alfa Romeo. Moss drove 250F Maseratis in 1954 for himself on the works, and then again in 1956. Brooks was the Maestro's teammate in 1957 and 1958 at Vanwall. Here, a Talbot Lago leads a 250F Maserati and 3 ERAs. These cars celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. I asked Tony Brooks if he was looking forward to his day in Birmingham.
Yes, it should be very good fun. I think having a look at this new circuit and getting in the seat of the Vanwall again, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you were a driver who excelled in really very fast circuits. Did you enjoy the street circuits as well, going back to Monaco and days like that when you were driving regularly?
Yes, I enjoyed any road circuit. I don't know whether I had a particular reputation on the faster circuits. Certainly I love Spa and Nürburgring, but Nürburgring was about a medium speed circuit. But I enjoyed Monaco as well. So any road circuit I thoroughly enjoyed. Well, I think it's got to be a good idea to get motor racing into Birmingham. It's got to be good for industry and commerce in this area. Clearly you can't start off with Grand Prix category motor racing, but if you can start with sports and saloon cars and move on to Grand Prix, I think that would be marvellous. It's got to be good for the area.
The stars and the cars that have taken part in the Chequer Bitter Classic have flown in from all over the world to be with us here in Birmingham. To a man, they all want to see Birmingham get its reward of a motor race round the streets. As Fangio passes the checkered flag, followed by Stirling Moss and Tony Brooks and the rest of the historic Grand Prix Championship cars, John Watson leads off the Davenport's International Formula One event, paying tribute to the Ford Cosworth DFV era in Grand Prix racing. As the Arrows, the Williamses, the Tyrrells and the Marches follow John Watson's tour around the circuit, we asked John for his views on racing round the streets of Birmingham.
There's no reason why you can't have motor racing in Birmingham, and I would imagine then ultimately a Grand Prix, because other cities do this, certainly not in England presently, but all around the world. Street races are becoming more popular.
And John should know because he excels on circuits like this. The ex-Jackie Stewart Tyrrell from the Donington Museum. Chris Mann with the FW07 Williams. The Tissot Ensign there, a very rare little car indeed, of Mike Littlewood. And there is Watson once again, having his one and only drive in a 008 Tyrrell. The Ford Cosworth DFV Grand Prix engine reigned supreme in Grand Prix racing between 1957 and 1983. We asked Birmingham's Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Bill Soughton, if Birmingham wants motor racing.
Certainly does. Top of the world. I think it makes one feel excited and elated to see this going on and to see the way people are enjoying themselves. I've only been in the city 45 years, but I've never seen so many people around a circuit such as I've seen today.
And how about Rothman's Porsche team driver, Derek Bell? What are his views on the economics of racing on the streets of Birmingham?
It would cost a lot of money, but when you look at the actual circuit itself, it doesn't need repaving. That's the great thing. A lot of these circuits like Dallas, they had to actually build a circuit. They've had to build one at Las Vegas, in the car park there. So I think the cost would be high, but not relative to what other people have had to pay. And I think the prestige that it brings that city is quite outrageous. And, you know, I mean, the Americans will say, Birmingham, you know, we thought that was the home of sort of the British manufacturing area of cars. Of course it is, but I mean, you know, let's just try and show the world that it's more than that, you know, that Birmingham has got more to offer.
John Surtees, on 4 wheels here or on 2?
Well, I think it's 4 today. I'm surprised actually to see that they brought the 2-wheelers along, but I think that's super for the public.
I think it is too. As far as racing on the streets are concerned, is this something that you'd like to see in Birmingham?
I'd like to see it anywhere. I think that racing through the streets has a very special place, and it also helps to keep a balance on the sort of technical developments of the cars. If you have sort of man-made circuits which were intended for racing, you often put many features in which frankly aren't very good for racing. They don't get it very right, and street circuits have a very special atmosphere, and of course the sound through street circuits is that much different, and it also is a slightly different driving. You know, the sort of techniques you need are that much more precise, and the street circuit, I know it's something of the past really, but there is room for it. Not too many of them, but there's room for it, and particularly with Birmingham being the, should I say, the ex-home of the motor industry, and hoping to resurrect that sort of industry side, it would be ideal. Good entertainment, you know, and fun, and
good commercial possibilities as well.
The Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress enjoyed their ride round the circuit. I had one last question, however, for Juan Manuel Fangio before he returned to Argentina.
If we are lucky enough to have a motor race here, will you come back?
Si venís, si tenemos la suerte de tener aquí una carrera, ¿vendrías vos a verla? Yes, it's possible, of course.
And so to the final parade, on a day which created happiness for people of all ages on the streets of Birmingham. Just how many people came along to watch the Davenport's Chequer Bitter Classic? A question I posed to Chairman of the City of Birmingham Leisure Services Committee, Councillor Brian Bird.
No idea at all, but as a local, to see the city centre so full, it's tremendous. And if we can do this every year, it'd be even better.
And everyone who came to Birmingham for the Davenport's Chequer Bitter Classic felt exactly the same. At the end of the day, I asked Martin Home of International Festival Services if he was happy.
Yes, I'm smiling very much indeed, Neville. I think it's gone all right, hasn't it? Well, somebody said something like 250,000 people, but I've been rather busy on the start line and I haven't had time to count.